Hi, this one shouldn't be, this is tutorial 3 of the um, bounce tutorial. Um, so what this is that we're now going to use Adobe Animate, which actually I forgot that it used to, this is actually a Flash animator. Um, or I could go back 3 or 4 different things. Basically, hopefully I'll be able to do this pretty fast because of the fact that I've actually been using this since about 1997, so about uh, 33 years. So that's crazy. Um, no, 23 years. But anyway, that's crazy that this technology has been around that long. So what's going to happen here is that um, how does the workflow with Animate work, or Flash or whatever you want to call it? Really what you wind up doing is that you wind up creating keyframes just like anything else, but what's different here is that to get from one place to the next, from one keyframe to the other, where After Effects automatically tweens or makes the automatically makes the frames in between, you have to tell Animate how to do it. And that's where After Effects is actually a little bit easier program than Animate, but you'll see what goes on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a full HD. I could do this for print. You can do all sorts of different formats here. I'm going to do full HD, which is 1920 by 1080 pixels. 24 frames per second. By the way, make sure you get that one right, or you're going to have problems when we get into Premiere. Don't worry about this platform type because what happens is that we're not publishing to the web. Really, what Animate does best actually is create content for the web. Okay. One little side conversation we're going to talk about. I know that a lot of students would like to do a bit more with Animate in our program. That actually isn't a bad idea, but you have to keep in mind some things. On one hand, this is Adobe Macromedia, whatever. Flash technology. And it's using what they call Flash. Well, there's an issue with that in that Apple has dropped all support for Flash technology as of January 1st, 2021. So what's happening is that there's plenty of things that we can use it for, but if you plan to put any of this stuff up on the web, you'll have to output for HTML5 canvas as opposed to ActionScript 3 if you plan to do anything on an iPad, on an iPhone, or a PowerBook, or any sort of Macintosh. So these are just some of the little things that happen. But in this case, I'm just going to do this for ActionScript 3.0. Full HD, 24 frames per second. And here we go. Okay, so now we have a series of layers. We're only going to use one layer. We're only going to use about 2 or 3 functions in this program, actually. But the one thing that we want to do is that we want to get the stage set up properly. So we're not going to worry about matching contents, scales, all these things. We do want to, however, set the stage at this bright green, this 00FF00 green. And see there? 00FF00. So that's it. 24 frames per second. We're all good. So, so that's fantastic. We have everything set up. You can see here that there's the time doesn't really slide so much. I mean, it can scale. It scales up here. You can scale the time up here, and I'm going to scale it to the point where, yeah, we'll just go here, and I just want it to be where we can see our 23 frames. Remember, we're going to do 23 frames because the 24th frame is actually the frame that goes up. So that's the top frame. So really, we're actually cycling 23 frames, and the 24th frame is actually the first frame of the next cycle. So that's where we're at. So what we want to do is we want to import to the stage, and then we'll just go down here. We'll bring in this virus, and we can see here that it's a bitmap, and I'm going to scale it down to 80 by 80 pixels. And let's move it up here over to the right so that we can put it on the right hand side so that when we put everything together, it'll all work out. So remember, what I like to do is I like to go pose to pose and then put things in between. So maybe I should put out the Alan Becker animation for the animation tutorial for that. And then, so notice out here I'm over in frame 12, and we can move the time slide. We can move the time slider around, but it doesn't like moving around unless you have a frame there. So I'm going to put it in a frame, and I'm going to insert a keyframe. So what that means, there's a keyframe for here and a keyframe here. So I'm going to take this, and the nice thing about all the Adobe programs is it tends to let you, snap into alignment, and it's all vertically aligned. But watch what happens. Notice that when we go from here to here, it's I mean, it's okay. Actually, you know what? The one thing I think I'm going to do. No, actually, I need to do this. Okay. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go over to 21, 22, 23. I'm going to put a keyframe in. And I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do something called onion skinning. And so what this does is this allows me to see kind of a ghost of all the frames that go within a certain range. So I'm going to turn this on. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do a couple really kind of crazy things. Notice that you can just barely see this, see the first frame that I did. Well, guess what? What I'm going to do is I'm just put that underneath there. So you can see that there's my pose to pose. Not a problem. So remember, what we need to do is that we need to think about our, where the animation is at certain points in time to talk about acceleration and talk about gravity. So, because of gravity, we can't have the virus be in the middle at frame 6 because actually it will be further down than the middle at frame 6. So what I'll do here is that I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a new keyframe. Remember, in Animate, you have to make a keyframe before you do anything else. So what we're going to do is we're going to set keyframes, and then we're going to tween the keyframes. So tweening means in between. In other words, it creates the frames in between your keyframes. So I'm going to insert a keyframe. And notice it kind of tends to snap in place. I'm going to move it down about 60–70%. Okay. So that's not too bad. And so I'll probably also want to do probably want to do a keyframe about, probably want to do about 2 or 3 keyframes right next to each other. And yep, and that's probably going to be about how it's going to work. The one issue with Animate, it's just a lot harder to move keyframes around. It's actually a lot easier in After Effects. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to go and I'm going to select my object. And I'm going to, remember, I'm going to make things proportional. Remember, this whole thing that Becker is talking about with squash and stretch. So I'm going to make sure that it's kind of equal. So I'm going to make it 1.5 times longer, and I'm going to make it 75% wide. So I'm going to make it 60 pixels wide, and make sure that your lock and width is unlocked. And just kind of make sure that that is snapped back into the middle. And take your height, your width, and your height, and make that then make that about 110. And then bring that back up into where it was before. And then what you want to do is that you want to grab that keyframe and what happens is this. You're gonna bring this back to something that kind of looks normal. That'll be fine. And then the thing is that then notice here, and then really what we're kind of doing is we're not tweening here. We're basically just frame animating here. I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it twice as wide. 160. And I'm going to have to put this back in the middle. And see, it just snaps back in place. It'll be fine. And then I'm going to make it 40 high. Notice it kind of goes up. So I need to bring it back down here. Let's go back to the previous keyframe. And we're going to need to bring this down just a little bit. The one thing is that you can actually, I haven't shown you this, but you can onion skin in Photoshop. If you want me to talk about that, I'll do that a little bit there. So what happens is that I want to be about halfway in between this 80 and this 200. So I'm going to maybe make it about 140 wide. And then let's take it down to about 60 high. And then let's just put this back here. And let's go over here and then just adjust this. And then, and actually I think this needs to go up a little bit because it's going to start getting really slow, really fast. So let's just take a look at this just for a moment. Okay, that'll work. I think that'll work for the moment. I think the only thing that I want to do here is that maybe take this a little bit further down and maybe make it 90 wide, maybe 70 tall. Just get it to start stretching a little bit. Bring it in there. No, let's just see how this looks. Okay. Okay, notice that this kind of jerks a little bit because we haven't set the tweening yet. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm basically going to since a couple of these frames are just frames, I'm just going to move them back into position. So now just a second. And by the way, the only reason why I'm inserting a keyframe is because I want to cut this. So what I've done here, oh, that's kind of crazy. Okay, I'll move that into position. And as I said, I'm just gonna. Sometimes I just make keyframes just so I can cut. So I'm gonna take this, put this back in here. I'm gonna put a keyframe in here. I can't say this is the right way to do it, but this is just how I do it. And then actually, this keyframe (20, 21, 22, 23), and I'll just put this back up here. Snap that in place. That. And I'm just going to grab this, go back over here to that keyframe 22, that's fine. I'll make it just a little bit lower. And (11, 12). I have no idea why there's two of that there. So, okay. And let me see what this looks like. Yep, that's okay. And then I want to take that and put that back into place. The other one was, okay, so what happens? We have 10, 11, 12, and then we're mirroring the animation, 13, and then basically what I want to do is that I want to go out here 1, 2, 3 frames, 1, 2, 3 frames. I'll go for insert a keyframe, take this, put it there, and I can just see where this was before, and then that's it. So it should be fine. So let's get down to tweening this. So basically, tweening just basically takes from one keyframe to the next, and you just have to do it manually. So what I do is I do classic tween, because I've been using this for a while. And the thing is that there's content called symbols. It's either vector or, but what it is that it takes whatever content you've got and it puts it into this asset list called the library. So I haven't been doing that. I haven't been, converting things into symbols for the library. That's a little more advanced technique. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, can we let this do it automatically? I say sure. That's great. So now look what's happened here. It's made this motion happen. That's pretty cool. And notice that I can just do this. all of these. So, and then honestly, see, that's great. Let's take a look at that. Okay, now all we need to do is to basically see here. I have a little bit of an issue here in that I have these old keyframes here. I'm wondering whether I can cheat. Maybe I can make another layer. Let me put in layer 2. Let me take this up here. And okay. Yep. And this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take what's at frame 10, and then I'll take what's at frame 14, and I'll just go here, frame 14, put this here, and then I'm not going to worry so much about. So I'm going to copy what's at that frame. I'm going to put keyframe there. And I'll just paste this in here. And then I'll get rid of that because we don't need it. And then I'll just go back over here and just grab this piece. And then I'll just go out to frame 21, 2, 3. Frame 22. And in this sort of keyframe, just going to get rid of all this. And actually, I'll just go here. that. Move this forward. Like that. Let's put this back up here to where this other one is. Get rid of that. And then okay, and then I'll just tween everything. I'm a little bit off. So okay, notice that it adjusts just fine. So we should be fine. Okay, let's loop this. You know what? I'm not. I'll set the entire sequence, and more or less that's the idea. So let's export this to export video media. 1920 by 1080. This is actually kind of cool. Imagine that it says ignore stage color, generate an alpha channel. So in other words, basically what we can do is that we can just not have it green screen. Just basically because we're doing this this way with a green screen, I'm going to keep it. But you could possibly have the transparency stay there. So, okay. So I'm going to, I'm going to save this as ball animate. And it's as an H.264. And the thing is, the default that says Adobe Media Encoder. That's fine for me. Okay. So, all done. Frame range, which I'm going to do 1 to 22. I'm going to do something. I'm going to show you how to do something in Premiere. I'm going to show you how to do a time stretch. So let's export it. Okay, Adobe Media Encoder is coming up. If you don't have it installed, install it because it is the biggest help you're ever going to see. So it'll take a couple seconds for it to come up. And then we will we'll just let this thing encode, and it'll make a movie. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to take all three of these, and we're going to put them in Premiere, and hopefully this will be maybe about a 5-minute tutorial. And then guess what? We're done. That's not a big deal. And then the next thing is that over the next week we'll be finishing up the silhouette animations. I mean, not this, but the first week of April, we'll be finishing up the So with animations and really, to tell you the truth, it'll be open lab session. You'll just be showing me stuff that you're doing and go from there. So the really, we'll need to meet, and actually, as I said, I'm going to be assigning I'm going to be assigning movies to you, just because we're animators. We see animation. So, and the other thing is that being that we're in with coronavirus, that I want to give you some good assignments that's actually going to help you. So guess what? Here's Ball Animate 4, successfully created. Let's go down into downloads, and yeah, I know I've got all this stuff. 376. And let's just go here to ball bounce. This is it. Ball animate might be it. Yep. Let's take a look. Yep, that's it. Yep, that's it. Boom. And if I want to loop it, yep. So all done. So hopefully, even though I kind of mess around a bit with the keyframing in Animate, honestly, because I haven't done it for a while, but I got it to work. Hopefully, you'll get through it pretty quickly. Honestly, I think between Photoshop and After Effects, I think it's really the more difficult out of the three. So, but suit yourself. So, okay. Thanks a lot, and I'll get everything put together in Premiere. And let's see. Okay.